Shedeur Sanders' biggest flaw didn't just show up on the stat sheet in Cleveland's Week 16 loss to the Buffalo Bills. It showed up in the moments that actually decide NFL games. The Browns didn't lose 23-20 because Sanders threw for only 157 yards. They didn't lose solely because of the two interceptions. They lost because when the game narrowed down to a handful of high-leverage snaps, Sanders' lack of pocket and situational awareness resurfaced in the most damaging way possible. And this isn't new. Late in the fourth quarter, Cleveland had a chance. Not a perfect chance, not a wide-open opportunity, but a real one. Facing a critical fourth down situation, Sanders held the ball too long and took a sack that essentially ended the Browns' hopes of pulling off the upset. In the NFL, that's a back-breaking mistake. Not because sacks are rare, but because context matters more than talent at this level. That play perfectly encapsulated the central concerns surrounding Sanders as a quarterback. He struggles to understand when a play is over. At lower levels of football, holding the ball can be survivable. In college, especially at Colorado, Sanders often had the arm talent and improvisational ability to escape pressure, reset, and make something happen. Even when he took sacks, they were sometimes viewed as the cost of doing business behind a leaky offensive line. But the NFL doesn't forgive that habit. In the NFL, pressure closes faster. Defensive ends don't just chase, they flatten angles. Linebackers don't hesitate, they trigger. Safeties don't miss tackles, they end drives. And on fourth down, especially late in games, a sack is often worse than a risky throw. That's the lesson Sanders is still learning the hard way. Pocket awareness isn't just about feeling pressure. It's about understanding the situation before the snap and knowing the acceptable outcomes. On fourth and medium late in the game, an incompletion keeps you alive. A throwaway gives you a chance. Even a risky pass into coverage can be defended if it gives your receiver an opportunity. A sack gives you nothing. That's why fans reacted so strongly and why the criticism isn't just noise. When people say Sanders lacks situational awareness, they're not questioning his arm talent or toughness. They're questioning whether he processes the game fast enough when it matters most, and the tape supports that concern. Pro Football Focus flagged this exact issue long before Sanders ever took an NFL snap. Even while acknowledging how poor Colorado's offensive line was, PFF pointed out that Sanders often invited pressure. He drifted in clean pockets. He bailed early when protection held. He failed to climb the pocket. He waited for plays to develop that never would. That habit doesn't magically disappear at the next level. It gets exposed. Against Buffalo, Sanders showed flashes. He completed his first 8 passes. He moved the ball efficiently early. He demonstrated accuracy and touch, especially on shorter throws. There are clearly NFL traits there. No one watching objectively would say Sanders lacks skill. But the NFL doesn't grade quarterbacks on flashes. It grades them on moments. The second interception, batted at the line and picked off deep in Brown's territory, wasn't reckless, but it was late. The fourth down sack wasn't a bad read, but it was bad judgment. These aren't issues of arm strength or confidence. They're issues of timing, anticipation, and understanding when a play has failed. That's what separates quarterbacks who survive in the league from those who cycle through depth charts. The uncomfortable truth for Cleveland is that this flaw isn't easily fixed. You can coach footwork, you can scheme quick reads, you can improve protection, but situational awareness, the instinctive understanding of down, distance, clock, and consequence, is developed through reps, failures, and mental recalibration. Some quarterbacks make that leap. Some never do. What complicates Sanders' evaluation is that his environment hasn't helped him. The Browns are 3-12. The offensive line has been inconsistent. The run game only recently showed signs of life. Injuries have stripped him of weapons, and playing from behind magnifies bad habits because quarterbacks feel pressure to do more than the play requires. But that context only explains the problem. It doesn't excuse it. If Sanders wants to be Cleveland's long-term answer, this is the area he must improve more than any other. Not arm talent, not accuracy, not swagger. He has those. He must learn when to give up on a play. That sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest lessons for competitive quarterbacks, especially those who've always been the best player on the field. Sanders has spent his football life believing that one more second could turn into something special. In the NFL, that belief often turns into a sack, a strip, or a season-ending mistake. The Bills game didn't prove that Shedeur Sanders can't play in the NFL, but it did reinforce why teams were cautious during the draft. Right now, Sanders is a quarterback with clear talent and a glaring weakness. Whether he becomes a franchise player or just another name in Cleveland's long quarterback history will depend on whether he can fix that weakness faster than the league exploits it, because defenses already know where to attack him. And until Sanders learns to beat them mentally instead of physically, games like Sunday will keep ending the same way: close, frustrating, and just out of reach. Shedeur Sanders' biggest flaw didn't show up on the stat sheet alone Sunday. It showed up in the moments that decide NFL games. Cleveland's 23-20 loss to Buffalo wasn't a blowout. It wasn't a talent mismatch. It was a game that's stayed within one possession late into the fourth quarter. The exact kind of situation where a quarterback either proves he belongs or reinforces doubts that already exist. And for Sanders, that moment exposed the issue scouts, analysts, and now fans keep circling back to: pocket awareness. Sanders finished the afternoon with 157 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. On paper, that's not disastrous for a rookie, but football games aren't won on box scores. They're won and lost on situational decisions. And Sanders' inability to feel pressure, recognize the moment, and act decisively was the difference. Late in the fourth quarter, with the Browns needing a conversion to stay alive, Sanders took a sack on fourth down, not a sack where protection immediately collapsed, not a sack where a free rusher screamed untouched off the edge, a sack where the quarterback simply held the ball too long. That can't happen. Not in the NFL, not in that situation. You can miss a throw, you can misread coverage, you can even throw an interception earlier in the game and recover. But on fourth down, late in a one-score game, the quarterback's internal clock has to be flawless. The ball either comes out to a receiver out of bounds or into the dirt, or the play is dead anyway. Taking a sack is the worst possible outcome. That single moment crystallized what has followed Sanders from college to the pros. He doesn't consistently know when the play is over. The reaction was immediate. Fans didn't talk about arm talent. They didn't talk about toughness or leadership. They talked about awareness. Shedeur has one huge problem: football situation awareness. Shedeur has terrible pocket awareness. Shedeur has great throwing skills, but my God, his pocket awareness is some of the worst in history. That criticism didn't come out of nowhere. It's been there for years. At Colorado, Sanders played behind an offensive line that struggled mightily. He was pressured constantly, more than any quarterback in the country. That context matters, and it explains part of the problem. When a quarterback is hit over and over, he develops bad habits. He rushes reads, he anticipates pressure that isn't there, he bails from clean pockets, or paradoxically, he freezes, waiting for something to open up while defenders close in. Pro Football Focus flagged this exact issue long before Sanders ever put on a Browns uniform. They noted that while Colorado's line deserved plenty of blame, Sanders himself invited pressure. He led the nation in quarterback-faulted pressures and sacks. Too often, he abandoned clean pockets early or held the ball while waiting for plays to fully develop, even when the situation demanded something quicker. That's the core issue. Sanders often plays as if every down is the same. In college, you can survive that. Elite athletes bail you out. Defenders miss tackles. Receivers improvise. In the NFL, the margin for error disappears. Windows close faster. Pass rushers don't get tired, and defensive coordinators feast on quarterbacks who don't understand timing and leverage. Against Buffalo, Sanders showed flashes. He moved the offense at times. He made throws that reminded everyone why he was once projected much higher than where he was drafted. But every positive moment came paired with a reminder of why teams hesitated. The first interception came